The number of children in Florida being Baker Acted, meaning court-ordered involuntary psychological examinations, is surging, up by 50% in the last 5 years. What is going on here? That is our focus tonight. But first, ABC 7's Alex Redmond with a short history of the Baker Act.
They're coming to take me away, ha-ha. They're coming to take me away, ho-ho, hee-hee, ha-ha.
Historically, protection for those suffering mental illness was lacking, even considered at times a joke.
During the second half of the 18th century, we had a Mental Health Act that permitted vagrants to be hospitalized against their will indefinitely.
In the 18th century, there were no medications, and so treatment was, by today's standards, barbaric.
Water torture. A sprout of water could be over your head after it's been shaven and drip on your head, supposed to restore sanity. You could be locked into a room and with a straitjacket, arms confined.
Forensic psychologist Dr. Eddie Renier explains patients were not informed of their rights. They couldn't write or talk to anyone other than one outside contact.
How about it, you creeps, you lunatics, mental defectives?
The iconic film One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, set in a mental institution in the 1960s, was an eye-opener. In 1971, the Baker Act, named after Maxine Baker, a former Florida state legislator and advocate for the rights of the mentally ill, became law.
Well, the Baker Act gave rights to patients. Patients could receive mail, they could vote, patients could talk to anybody they wanted to, and they were permitted to have legal representation. That is, if they're being held against their will for 6 months, a lawyer, a magistrate would come and hear and look at their status if they were making any progress.
Dr. Renier says the days where you could be institutionalized forever without ever having a release date were over. Now, the number of Baker Acts for Sarasota's 2016 fiscal year, October through September, including adults and children, are 1,429, and Manatee County is 398.
Mental health workers can initiate a Baker Act. And the criteria for a Baker Act, the person has to really suffer from a mental disorder, and not simply because they're misbehaving or because they're poor, because they're vagrant, because they're homeless. That's not a reason to sign a Baker Act. You have to have an identifiable criteria of mental disorder.
Protocol for the Baker Act